Here we go. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our live stream today. The subject of the day is how to cure society's ills. I'm going to just get our web chat rocking and rolling here. So if you're with us, give a shout out. That way we know all the channels are working. Your chat will appear right here. Again, we're talking about how to cure society's ills, and it is not going to be a dry conversation. We're actually going to talk about some juicy stuff here. And the juicy stuff is we're looking at like school shootings, massive rises in suicides. People are just really fucked up today. And I had a guy, an old man, telling me yesterday, geez, he feels like America's really fucked up. And the world's really fucked up. I mean, look, the world's better than it probably ever has been in many ways. But society has its ills. Many are suffering from it. I mean, gosh, we're living in a time where there's more abundance, more opportunity, more technology, more comfort than there ever has been. Yet suicide rates are climbing and they're sky high, especially for teenagers. And we've got school shootings and we've got some crazy shit going on. What is going on? Well, we're going to get into that today. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
Shani.
exactly. Garrett, just 2 days ago, did you hear about the founder of Kate Spade?
Yeah, I heard about that, but I didn't hear much. All I heard is that she killed herself.
That's all I know too. And
Yeah.
it's tragic. It's terrible. I mean, and it's so interesting because of course, and I don't know if this is going to get into like our full-on discussion today or not, but of course the first thing you think when someone like her takes their own life is that it's such an indicator that success and finances and money and all that clearly does not dictate happiness at all. If you think of her, you think of Robin Williams, you think of all these different people who were wildly successful, loved by many, and somehow there was still enough pain, suffering, um, darkness going on to want to take their own lives.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is it besides fame and fortune that you're going to fill your cup with? Obviously, if, fame and fortune is the only thing you're chasing after, which is what society would have you believe is salvation. That's heaven, right? According to society, heaven is having all the money, power, societal power, and fame and fortune in the world. I mean, that's what society kind of gives you as the crown jewel that you're chasing. That's the heaven that society offers, and yet those who reach those pearly gates, such as Kate Spade, we're seeing that's not the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Society
Right.
is lying to you. So what is the way to cure society's ills? And we got a bunch of people saying hello. Hey, everybody. Great. So Barry says hello. Hi, Barry. Hi, John. Can we chat? Have you seen my videos today? Josephine, I have not seen your videos today, but feel free to comment with a link to your videos in the chat here. And maybe after the live stream, we'll get to those. If you have subject matter in your videos you want to talk about, go ahead and chat it in. By the way, people, if you're getting this, go ahead and hit like one of those like buttons or heart buttons or crazy faces or whatever, because that helps us know everything is running smooth, and it also helps get this out to the Facebook audiences. Facebook is being an evil rat bastard. We have something like 150,000 fans or followers on Facebook, and yet when we do these live streams, Facebook only lets maybe 1,000 people know, which is total bullshit. But that's how Facebook works, because they want you to pay to get the word out. So we're not into that. But one way you can sort of tell Facebook's algorithm that this message deserves to get to the other people who subscribe to see it, you can just hit those faces. Yeah, there you go. Those like buttons and those faces and those that should let the algorithm know, hey, this is a worthy message to have out there. Anyway, okay, so let's get back to Kate Spade and Robin Williams and all of these tragic suicides we see with the rich and famous, but then we also see that teenage suicides have doubled since 2007. I mean, that's terrible. And suicides are, continue to be astronomically high, especially for men and adolescent boys. because unfortunately, men and adolescent boys, when they get suicidal thoughts, tend to be very effective at actually killing themselves. But there are more suicide attempts by young women and adolescent girls, which shows that there's a lot of angst and heartache there. Fortunately, these girls and young women are not as effective as possible as Kate Spade was. So, you know, so there's help. But what is the actual underlying root of all of this discontent and all of this desperation? It's that society, well, I mean, here, I'm going to just act like I know the answer. Well, I kind of do. And here's why. After the Columbine shootings, or in the midst of amidst the Columbine shootings, there was Congress commissioned a national longitudinal study on what are the early indicators. Are there any scientific early indicators that someone is going to commit violence, shoot up a school, or commit some form of self-harm? And the number one most salient predictor was how connected that person reported feeling to their friends and family, school community, etc., and how much the school community reported feeling connected to them. That was way, way, way more significant than things you might think were the issue, like how good are their grades, how smart are they, how talented are they, how much money do they have, how much money does their family have, is their family, are they in a home where the parents are divorced, were they adopted, any of those things. It's like, no, all the things you would think could contribute to someone committing self-harm or violence, those aren't the big issues. The big issues are, how connected do you feel? How connected do they feel? And in addition to that, just metaphorically, down to the cellular level, we as human beings are built of all these cells that when one of your cells gets away from its peers, right, disconnected from its peers, say your heart cell ends up in your liver, that heart cell will commit suicide. It will kill itself, because that is what our cells are fundamentally designed to do, so that we don't get cancer. So if a heart cell ends up in your liver cell and continues to grow and sort of self-replicate, then that becomes cancer. But the anti-carcinogen in your body is just, if that cell finds itself in the wrong place, disconnected from its peers, the instinct that cell has is to kill itself. So we're built of these cells, and you may wonder, like, it makes us wonder, well, okay, so now you have a child in a school system that feels disconnected from their community, and boom, they may be killing themselves, and they may take a few others with them if they're really, really hurt and rejected, So this is what we're contending with, and I'm going to take some of these comments here real quick. Best way to change society is to change ourselves. In my estimation, we have a lot more room for improvement in our immediate domain. I totally agree with you. And so that's what this is about, is like, how do we change ourselves? What is the fundamental change we can make in ourselves to combat this this disease, this epidemic of disconnection that so many people in our society feel? Number one reported illness in, I think it was the American Medical Association reported this too, but not just in psychological clinics, but all the way around, is loneliness. Loneliness is literally worse for you than smoking and obesity. Like,
oh wow,
yeah, right? Like, that's pretty
wow.
bad. Yeah, your life expectancy goes down further from being lonely and disconnected than it does from smoking and eating like a pig.
That is crazy. Holy shit, that
Yeah.
is insane.
Yeah.
Whoa. That really tells you, like, right? Like, I just feel like, what the hell? Like, this is such juicy information, Garrett. This is why it's so important that your voice is always out there, because I just feel like specifically our Western culture really ignores emotions. There's not really space for them. There's not really space for them in corporate. There's not a lot of space for them in the educational system. We just, like, there's like no addressing of emotions or life skills. And I feel like when you tell me these studies, I'm like, what? Like, this is clearly something that's important that should be addressed more often, more regularly, with more vigor. It's like, what is wrong with us?
Well, I think part of it is that science is still evolving. Science is still growing. So science began with like, can we figure out how fast an apple is going to fall from a tree? You know, like that's Isaac Newton going, okay, well the apple accelerates, and there's an equation to describe that. And so we start with sort of very rudimentary things that could be observed and repeated. And what science basically is can you create a hypothesis about observations that can be repeated. So like this, every time these things, you know, every time this happens, it's going to happen this way along this progression because of these things. Well, emotions are so squiggly and wiggly and difficult to describe. And like, how can you tell if you're having the same exact emotion that someone else may be describing with the same words? So what you might describe as loneliness might be boredom, and what someone else might describe as loneliness might be alienation. And it's like, okay, so then we have all these issues with how does science sort of keep tabs on that. But when you get big enough models, when you get a big enough study, such as this national longitudinal study that had tens of thousands of students that they tracked from a young age, and they continue to track, then you start to sort of see the patterns that were harder to see before we had the technology and the infrastructure to do these kinds of ginormous studies. And so what the study shows is that, you know, the indicator is your reported feelings of connection. I mean, they don't even, you know, even depression in your family and things of that sort that you would think would be really big, salient issues are eclipsed, are dwarfed by how much you report feeling connected. So then that leads us to a weird thing. It's like, well, how do you feel more connected? If connection is so deeply important that it's worse for you to feel disconnected than to smoke a pack of cigarettes a day or to eat McDonald's 3 big square meals a day and become obese, like if it's worse for you to feel disconnected and lonely than those two things, that's pretty bad. But on top of that, you know, your chances of becoming so depressed that you start contemplating suicide is also sky high if you're feeling really disconnected. So we're seeing here that disconnection could be the single most destructive force of human nature, of the human psyche, like disconnection. And society, unfortunately, is designed in many ways to disconnect us from our inner truth and from our immediate relationships, so that we are more dependent and connected to the big idea that society is trying to sort of thrust upon you, the big idea of like support the big federal government. Like that's what society, support the big military industrial complex, support the big systems, and the way that they get you to have allegiance to these bigger systems, whether it's Instagram or nuclear warheads, is to disconnect you from your immediate grounding, your immediate connections, your immediate relationships. So you're, instead of spending time with those around you, really relishing in the deep, heartfelt connections you could be having on that during that beautiful sunset on the beach, you're taking selfies on Instagram and trying to project that into this fake world that Instagram creates, where everyone's really more disconnected from their immediate environment. And are you genuinely feeling those connections from all those likes on Instagram, or is it just become this head trip, this mind fuck, where you're not really experiencing the true benefits of deep, heartfelt connection, but you're simulating those on a social media platform?
I think it's a mind fuck, Garrett. Like, if we're taking votes here, like I literally, and I've always said this, like, you know me, I like the transcendentalist movement, Henry David Thoreau, let's go deep in the woods and discover if I had lived deliberately. Like, I'm a nerd, right? And even though I'm all about that stuff, there are times where I'm really like into Instagram or into Facebook, and I'm into these things because they're fun or because I run a business. You know, there's like reasons for me being into it. But like just in the last week, I've been like way more on Instagram, and I've really been like trying to just, I don't know, look at it and care and like do some stories and like look at my stats and blah, blah, blah. I seriously get so down. Like there really is something about this like weird thing where you are putting something out there to connect, but really ultimately it makes you feel disconnected. Oh, I don't have enough likes. I don't have as many followers as so and so. Oh, look, their life looks better than mine. And it just is so weird. And like I literally was like, dude, I need to do a social media detox. Like, I think this is actually depressing me. Like I can't be on social media as often. It makes me unhappy.
So let's talk about detox. Detox is often, like we think drugs when we think detox, but now we're thinking social media detox. And I think you're right on about that. There are so many drugs out there that we all partake in as participants in the society. And I think we're participating in the wrong drugs at the moment, or at least we're not balanced in the drugs that we're using. So what are the drugs that people are heavily addicted to and encouraged to be addicted to by our society? Social media, yeah, that's a drug. Drinking, alcohol, that's a drug. Caffeine, there's a drug. Ritalin,
Sugar.
Adderall, Concerta, Xanax. Here are all the online shopping. Traveling. Okay, now traveling could be really good for you, but if you're doing it because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses and have a good Instagram feed or profile or whatever, like there's a lot of egotism and narcissism. These are some drugs, but let's look at the ones that you're interacting with day to day. Chances are most of you drink every day. If not alcohol, at least coffee. If not coffee, at least some form of caffeine. If you're not participating in any of those, chances are you are participating in social media and various expressions of the internet and computers and screens, which are all drugs. Okay.
Yeah.
Even if like you look at your screen before you go to bed, you're going to have more trouble sleeping because that screen is shining an artificial light in your eyes and stimulating you like a drug. And then you're tossing and turning and you're not sleeping as well. So these are all sort of the drugs of choice that society pushes because these things fuel society. Even alcoholism fuels society. There's been studies that show that people who drink after work tend to be better employees. Why? Because like you can kind of eat more shit during the day and get through your job because
it's terrible.
But because you got your drug at the end of the day, you have a few beers or a martini or whatever, and you don't feel so bad about the way you just spent the last 10 hours of your life, and that you're spending 50 hours a week of your life, or the majority of your waking, productive, creative life, in some job you don't like or some job that you hate. Drinking solves that, at least temporarily. Right? Now the caffeine helps you when you wake up and you need to get back into the programming that society wants you to follow. Okay, so there's all the bullshit. Now let's look at some drugs, some alternative drugs that can really help you get the connection back that everything drinking diffuses your connection ability. So it actually might make you more open to connection in some ways, because if you had a lot of caffeine, have a couple drinks, it might bring you back down to reality, but you have too many drinks and now you're disconnected again. And it's not ideal. So what kind of drugs, what kind of things can bring us back to connection? Well, let's get to the root things first, and then we'll talk about like drugs to get you there. What makes you feel connection? Connection is a heart-to-heart expression in some ways. So it's between you and other life, okay? But then there's another kind of expression of connection, which is connection with the divine, right? Now we're all divine, so connection with another life is a connection with the divine. But then there's kind of like connection with a higher power, and that's awe. So you're either feeling love or awe and wonder, and all those feelings are indications that you are well connected. People have just mentioned shrooms and weed, okay, and sex. Wonderful. Okay, so the drug of love. All right, so let's talk about those. Shrooms make you feel very connected, and they're completely illegal. Why? They don't foster society's needs of controlling you. Okay, if you're on shrooms, you are going to start worshiping a higher power as opposed to worshiping society's expression of the dominance hierarchy, basically, you know. So instead of worshiping Donald Trump or the military industrial complex or some figurehead, some, you know, captain of industry, or some dream that you can get there and be that yourself, you become one with nature. Shrooms make you one with nature. And if you really get into that, it's like, well, you might not need shrooms to become one with nature. You could go, you know, some people are very good at just going into nature and absorbing the wonder and beauty and connection that nature offers. And that is an elixir. That is like an anti-drug that offers you back what you've lost in terms of connection. So just going and being in nature. And I'll give you some things you can do, whether or not you're on shrooms. If you're on shrooms, you don't need my advice, because the shrooms will lead you to what you need to feel and do to be connected with nature. But if you're not on shrooms, some things that can really help are taking deep breaths. Go outside, take deep breaths. You don't have to do this, like, this doesn't have to be a journey out into the wilderness that takes you 5 days. This can be something you do in 5 minutes. Go find the most natural spot with trees and fresh air and sun and, you know, that kind of environment, low on traffic noises and things like that. But even if you have that, look at the tops of the trees. The way the tops of the trees, the leaves sort of sway and move, like, connect with that and realize that, like, by connecting with that, it's almost like the trees are waving to you. It's like you can connect with the life force that those trees represent and reconnect with that life. Now, somebody said something under shrooms. I can't remember what it was. Weed. You know, there's another thing. I cannot, you know, I've had good experiences on it before, but I also am not a regular protagonist of or whatever. Like I with weed, that's something maybe others can. I'm sure there's plenty of YouTube channels out there, people who've really found deep connection through smoking weed. But then there's another thing that you can smoke, which actually has been used over centuries to help people feel connection, and it was discovered by the American Indians. It's tobacco. Now, tobacco has got a bad rap, right? We're just talking about it can cause cancer and lower your life expectancy. Well, that's smoking heavily processed, demented tobacco strains. There was a period in time about 100 or so years ago that they discovered that people were excited to buy white tobacco as opposed to green tobacco. And so then there was this big push to, like, get this sort of unnatural strain of tobacco, and then that became the dominant tobacco. I think right there that might have been a mistake. Mistake number two was in the 50s when all the doctors were prescribing, or not prescribing, but, you know, smoke the cigarette doctors recommend most. That was when the cigarette companies were also adding ammonia and all kinds of delivery chemicals into cigarettes, taking something that might have been mildly carcinogenic into something that is radically carcinogenic. So smoking cigarettes without the chemicals, I think that's another better step. But even better than that is, like, these days you've got all these vapes, right? And they're just delivering nicotine. Well, here's the thing. It's like nicotine takes, let me just tell you some stuff about brain waves, okay? When you're sleeping, you're in like delta or theta brain waves. Deep meditation is like a theta brain wave. But sort of the more elevated meditations, the ones where it's more of like an ecstatic experience, those are like theta alpha brain waves. And then people who are in the zone, like athletes who are like really like just physically very present and aware and lucid, that is alpha brain waves. But where we all sort of exist in society in the disconnected state, that's beta brain waves. Those are like more high frequency. They're kind of frenetic and frantic. And when you're in those brainwave states, you feel very disconnected. And if an athlete is in those brainwave states, they're going to choke. They're going to screw up. Their nerves are going to get to them. That's why you see athletes, when they talk about getting into the zone, it's like they have relaxed their nervous system down to the point where they're actually in this flow state, but it's lower than the beta state. It's not high frequency. It's lower frequency, and it's a sort of this relaxed grace, right? And that is where they're in the zone. They're able to play their best games, okay? Now, and fighter pilots, same deal. When they are locking on and really able to achieve the most accuracy with their maneuvers, they've seen that these fighter pilots drop from beta state down into alpha state. This is being in the zone. Well, what gets you into the zone? Weed, maybe. I haven't done enough research on it, okay? But that's going to get you high too. It's going to distort your perceptions. But tobacco gets you into alpha states, okay? Specifically, let's just go with nicotine, okay? Nicotine's a drug. It'll take your beta state brain and bring you down to an alpha state. Now you're in the zone, okay? Now, probably bad for you. If you're smoking cigarettes, it's probably bad for you. If you're doing dip, it's probably very bad for you. But this is why you see baseball players doing dip all the time, because they're trying to not get over nervous, but they're trying to be alert and they're trying to be in the zone, right? But now with all the vape pens and these Juuls and things like that, you can get that nicotine hit, get yourself into the zone, and now you start to see baseball players doing these things out in the field. Now, this is a drug. Is it ideal? No, but does it combat the other drugs, the caffeine, the alcohol, the social media, all that stuff? Yes, it's like it helps balance it. And when you're in the middle of a stadium with all these fans and the pressure's really on, baseball players have been using nicotine to get themselves calm down into the zone. You can do that too. And with these vape pens, you go out into nature and you just take some deep breaths, right? You're taking some deep breaths, you're focusing on nature, you're reconnecting. It's a drug, but it works. So you got shrooms, you got nicotine. We're advocating drugs here. Yeah, but you know what? But sometimes you need that to get back into the place where you can connect. And that's really the problem, is like, if we weren't so strung out on caffeine, alcohol, social media, screens, the frenetic energy of competition in society, if we weren't so strung out on that, we wouldn't need these other drugs to balance ourselves. But often, I'm going to be honest here, like if I try to go out and connect and commune and get into that, what I call is like that Frisian experience, which is like the goosebumps, the place that I get to when I'm making my videos. If I'm not in the music studio, making actively in the active creation, making my videos and really like spend an hour or two getting into that flow state, if I haven't done that and I need to get into that flow state, or I realize I'm feeling really disconnected and I go outside to like, try to take a deep breath and feel connected, I might be like, I need to get back to those emails. I need to get back to that phone call. I need to, it's like I can't slow down. I can't stop enough to really connect. And it feels frustrating. It's like when you're trying to meditate, but you're not really getting into any zone with your meditation. That's where the nicotine can really help. And I've always wrestled with, even in my first book, I mentioned the nicotine, but I've always wrestled with advising people to do something that could be bad for them physically. But now that we're realizing that feeling disconnected is worse for your health than smoking, fucking smoke, Yeah. But I would say, like, don't smoke, vape, because vaping is probably way healthier. I don't think there's been enough long-term studies, but come on, common sense. You're either inhaling like, water vapor and vegetable oil with some nicotine on it, or like you're smoking tar. Okay, I think we can common sense figure, vaping is probably the way to go. And that I have found over the years, it's like so, someone's saying traditional kava, there's all these options. The nice thing about nicotine, the reason I'm recommending the nicotine, is because it hits you fast and it goes away fast. So if you take on a little too much nicotine, you're just like, you're way out there. Maybe you're feeling connected, but you're way out there. It's gonna go away in about 10, 15 minutes, and you can focus again if you need to. Kava, I haven't had enough experience with it. Someone's saying organic tobacco. Yeah, in Sweden, they have organic tobacco, and it's regulated. Now, this is the interesting thing. Like, tobacco is just not regulated in the United States. Like, I don't know whether organic is regulated in the United States, but I think the tobacco lobby has been so strong for so long, you cannot count on anything being true that the tobacco companies are telling you, because I think they've worked so damn hard to make it so that they're not legally liable for anything that they say on their packages or whatever. Well, that's not true in Sweden. In Sweden, heavily regulated, and they have this stuff called snus, S-N-U-S, and that stuff is organic tobacco regulated by the government so that it's clean, good tobacco. It's the green variety, not the white mutant variety. And you don't smoke it. You stick it in your lip. It's in a little tea bag. You stick it in your lip. And that stuff they have done a longitudinal study on that, 20-year study, and they found that it's actually like virtually no cancer from it, virtually none. Like there was
really?
there was like 0.00001% increase in the likelihood that you get pancreatic cancer, and that's because they swallow their spit. Don't swallow your spit, spit it out like you would with dip, you know. But like in Sweden, everyone just swallows it. Oh, I think it's disgusting. I wouldn't want to swallow that. But anyway, so don't swallow it. You're probably like it's like zero cancer, you know, and that's tobacco. So it's just like, I think it's how if you really look at it, burning shit and eating shit that's burning or smoking stuff that's burning is bad for you. If you eat steaks that are burned or charred, or toast that's charred, it's like, that's carcinogenic. That char is carcinogenic. So if you're smoking char, that's carcinogenic. Is it the tobacco that's carcinogenic? Probably not. I'd be willing to bet if you just chewed organic, real tobacco, like really just chew the leaves, not with like, you know, stuff added to it. You know, like right now, dip in the United States is, you know, they've got fiberglass and shit in there to cut into your lips and all that, and who knows what else is added to it. So anyway, a lot has been distorted about tobacco. That's not the only things. We talked about shrooms. Shrooms, my God, I think these are like a huge solution to the fundamental disconnection we feel. Like, okay, there's little sort of daily half-ditch efforts we can make, you know, get some nicotine, meditate more deeply, get away from the screens, hug somebody. Oh my God, hugging is a drug. It's a drug. Like, hugging someone is a drug. That's I don't know why I keep saying it that way, but all kinds
One more time.
Hugging is a drug. Utilize it. It's a good drug, and it'll make you feel connected, and it'll make the person you're hugging feel connected. And it lowers your cortisol levels. It changes your biochemistry radically. And it is a powerful connection drug. So, you know, give someone you love a hug. Just connecting with someone, maintaining eye contact with someone who really sees you and really seeing someone else. That is a drug. That is a connection drug. And this is what we need in our lives more. Okay. We've got society compelling us to put our faces in our phones. Okay. We're standing in line here. We could connect with one another as human beings, maintain eye contact, and have a deep, or maybe not even deep, but have like at least a meaningful connection or a heartfelt conversation, or at least an authentic encounter. That's the opportunity we have every time we find ourselves amidst other people. But the compulsion we have because of society is to, what's going on? Because we feel awkward and we don't know what to say, and we don't want to appear unusual or uncool. So let me check and see what's going on Snapchat or Instagram or whatever. And that is, now we're disconnected, you know, boom, disconnected. So
we have one comment that says, oh shoot, it was so good. Western civilization is spiritually empty and addiction is the symptom. I was like, oh, that was really deep. I felt that one in my heart.
Say it again.
Western civilization is empty, or is spiritually empty, and addiction is the symptom.
Okay. Yeah, addiction. I mean, we just need to realize that there's addictions that are obvious. If you're a raging alcoholic, or you're on smack or something extreme, and extremely debilitating, or at least extremely anti-societal, people are going to notice that. I'm very interested in what you're saying by, and love bombing is not the answer.
Yeah, me too.
I'd like to know, A, what is your definition of love bombing, and B, if it's not the answer, why? What's the contention there? Very interested in that.
And also, what's a high T leader? I mean, now you got to tell us all kinds of stuff that you mean. I mean,
T is another natural drug. It's called testosterone, and some people have it in spades, and others have to shoot up to get it. And you know, that's you know, again, that's another thing. It's like, so testosterone, like, you can do all these things in your life to increase your testosterone, and for men, I think it's deeply important to do what you can to cultivate your T. So now, do I recommend shooting up T? I haven't done it yet. I know some people have had success with that. I don't know. It's like, I'm not an expert there, but I will say that T totally can transform your attitude. If I go hit the gym hard, and that's one of the things they've shown is, like, if you go and you hit the weights hard and you know, lift to the point where you can only do 6 reps, like, with all your might, like, that's all you can get out, and you do that again and again for half an hour or an hour, your T levels are going to spike. And when I go do that, man, like, I might be feeling depressed and discouraged and listless before I hit that gym, but, like, after I hit that gym, I feel like I can conquer the world. I'm optimistic, I'm, you know, confident, I'm happy, you know, I feel connected with my own self, I guess, right? Like, with my own ability to conquer those fucking weights, you know, like, whatever it is, it's like there is a thing there. And that, you know, so high T, I agree with high T. Now, the thing about high T, the thing about testosterone that can be a problem is, the more testosterone you have, the less likely it is you are going to surrender to the religious experience or the spiritual experience or that state of awe. Okay. And so now, that might be wrong. There was a study done that said men who have high T tend to, or high testosterone, tend, as they get older and continue to have higher testosterone, tend to be less religious. Now, what that could mean, maybe I misinterpreted it, because I have tremendous experiences of awe and wonder. My T doesn't seem to get in the way of it, although it does make me less likely to pursue that. Why would I want to go worship under the stars when I can conquer the fucking world, right? Which is what T makes me want to do. So I think there is evidence that T could probably pull you away from the more receptive experiences of awe and wonder and revelation. But at the same time, what they may have been correlating in that study is that religion tends to be dogmatic, and dudes who are high in testosterone are probably less likely to put up with the bullshit of dogma into their later years. They're going to be like, you know, fuck this noise. This isn't real. This isn't applicable to my life. This is not, you know, how you get shit done in this world, whatever it is. And so you might be much more willing to march to the beat of your own drum and not be taking other people's answers as your own, especially societies or some organized religion, if you're high in testosterone, because you're kind of an alpha male. You're a natural born leader, or at least you're a testosterone born leader. So it's like, yeah, I could see how all of that can play into less religiousness. However, one thing I want to warn against, or at least sort of clarify, is that if you are receptive to the awe-inspiring experience, if you are willing to surrender to a higher power and receive the grace of that higher power, the experience of that higher power, that is one of the most profound forms of connection that I have ever experienced. And so we can try connecting with each other, and I think that's wonderful and beautiful. And there's a point where you can only give so many hugs, you can only do so much service before it wears out. And so we have, like, the great service workers of humanity that we've witnessed, like Mother Teresa, and all she did was like serve, 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 and give, and she probably gave, you know, more hugs than mere mortals could, and she was probably more connected to those she was serving than most of us would be. But she even said like she could not do that work if she did not surrender and connect to God, to a higher power, and basically pray with her heart and experience God's grace every morning and then throughout the day to fill her up with the love, which is like the juice of connection. The juice of connection is love. Like, so what is connection? When we're saying connection, we're really just saying create conduits for love to travel into you, in and out of you, right? So that's what connection is. Like what we're experiencing right now in this disconnected society is that many of the natural conduits for love, where love would be flowing into you and love would be flowing from you to others, has been severed by things like, you know, what's going on Instagram, what's going on my phone. I don't care what's going on in my living room with my family because I'm getting a little bit bored. I need that dopamine hit, right? Or I don't care what's going on in my immediate environment. I'm at the bus stop or waiting for the subway or in a meeting or waiting for a meeting. I might as well be on my phone instead of connecting deeply with the other people around me. Now, if you go back 1,000 years and you're amongst other people, aside from the rampant aggression that is also prevalent in human beings, there's a tribalness, and that tribalness would encourage people to spend time with each other and commune with one another. And that is something that we're missing right now, is that communion. And so one thing that can really help you cultivate communion is first to be full of the love, because when we're connecting with others, part of the reason we don't want to connect with others is because we feel like sometimes you feel like you have these encounters and you feel like they've taken from you, or like you've tried to be loving and giving and expressive in an encounter. And although it can give you a boost, and it usually does, sometimes it can be exhausting. And especially if you're an introvert, it's like, well, your energy comes from inside. Well, that energy that comes from inside also comes from the divine, this higher power. And that higher power, when you connect to that, fills you up with so much love and grace that you're able to connect more deeply with others because you're just giving. You're not looking for anything. You're not waiting for them to listen to your side of like you're having a conversation and they say something and you're just like, oh, I could say this clever thing or share this thing, or I did that once too, or my brother had that too. It's like when you're kind of thinking that way, you're not completely connected, but it's because there's this transfer of energy going back and forth, and you don't want to be left wanting at the end, like you gave all this energy and attention, because attention is just another form of love. Like, if someone is paying a lot of attention to you or giving you attention, like a mother gives her child attention, it's like, that's love, right? So when you're giving other people attention and trying to connect with them, but giving them attention, sometimes you can feel like that love reserve is being depleted in you. And the solution to that is not to try to get even with them, make sure they heard your story too after they tell you their story. The solution is to connect deeply with a higher power, with a transcendent love, with truth or life. If you are atheist, like, it doesn't need to be God, okay? The higher power can just be life itself. Whatever this thing is that it infuses all of life on this planet, whatever truth is fundamentally, it's like you can connect with that inner life, that inner truth. And when you connect with that, it fills you up with this quality that is consciousness. Like, what is consciousness? When you can answer that question, that's what I'm saying. Attention is consciousness. So it's like when you are feeling someone's attention, you are feeling an outpouring of their consciousness onto you. What is love? Love is consciousness. It's like, it is the same essence. Love, attention, life, they're all consciousness. They're all the same essence. And that essence circulates between us as human beings. And often there's not enough love to go around. But why not? It's because we're not praying enough. We're not connecting to truth enough. We're not filling ourselves with life enough. We're not doing the things that make us truly come alive enough. And that, what makes you truly come alive generally is a sense of awe and wonder. When you want to get into that flow state and feel truly alive, when you want to experience frisson, and that's like the goosebumps and the energy, and you're like feeling really alive. What is that? It's like you're feeling the ring of truth. That's what's happening. It's like your whole being is resonating with truth, and that's what gives you the goosebumps, and that's what makes you feel alive, and that's what fills you with that life force, that attention force, that love force that can come through you now. And so that is what we want to do, is like cultivate that ability to turn on and tune in to this life force, this higher power, this transcendent love, this ring of truth that is in all of us, and to amplify that, because that is what life is all about. All life forms on the planet are basically amplifiers of this organizing, this self-organizing, transcendent intelligence that is essentially varying levels of consciousness that are trying to peer into this physical reality and create more life in this world. And our job as these beings that are sort of the greatest amplifiers on the planet of this life force is to find ways to cultivate this love force, this life force, this energy that we are, through a transcendent experience, through awe-inspiring, transcendent connections, and then to use that feeling, that outpouring of love or life force that we experience, and give it to others through our connection, deep heartfelt connections with them. So then the question is like, well, how do you have these awe-inspiring experiences? And like, is there any science behind this mumbo jumbo you're talking about, Garrett? Well, there is. It turns out that just like connection has been shown to minimize, like people who feel connected are healthier than someone who it makes you healthier than if you were like quit smoking, basically, right? So smoking and obesity are lesser health risks than not being connected. Therefore, being connected is a boost to your physical health more than quitting smoking and eating healthy or what have you. Well, there's also been studies on awe, okay? And that is what I'm talking about, this transcendent connection. When you experience awe, they have found that it makes you healthier. You live longer, okay? This is the same dynamic here. It's just a different kind of connection. Awe is a connection with the higher power, and then interpersonal connection is interpersonal connection, but they're both forms of connection, and that's what we're talking about. So there's actually studies out there that show that the inflammatory things that cause people to have cancer and whatnot, the inflammation is tremendously reduced by people who experience awe on a regular basis. And even one experience of awe greatly reduces inflammation in your cells, and a particularly nasty form of inflammation that can lead to all kinds of ailments, including cancer. So bingo, this is it. This is what we need to do. How do we do it? That's what we're talking about today. How do we do it? I've been ranting here, Shireen. I'm going to let you just kind of jump in and tell me what the hell's been going on in comment world or whatever.
I mean, I was literally thinking like, okay, so I basically need to do a diet where I watch one of your videos every day, multiple times a day, and see if I lose any weight. That would be amazing. And then I was immediately going to put more pressure on you to do your next viral video, specifically maybe around this subject, because I just feel like there's so much good, juicy shit coming out of you right now that like clearly you are inspired around it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm finding this is really core to my work. So when you say you should watch one of my videos, I'm not talking about watching one of my live streams where I'm, talking my ass off like I have been today. Right. Like, not talking about that. Shireen is speaking of the videos that I have specifically poured my heart and soul into channeling that awe-inspiring state, that experience of awe. So I go into my ecstatic state where I'm experiencing awe, and I'm in the studio, and I'm using music and spoken word and visuals, and I create these videos like We Are From the Future. And if I stick with it long enough, and if I'm devoted enough, and I keep channeling that awe experience that I'm looking for, boom, sometimes the magic happens, and then we have that video. And I tend to not release the video until that happens, which is why I don't release many videos because it takes a while to do that. But now I think we've got a good handful of them, and if any of them work for you, great. And if you want something that's more portable where you're not watching the video, well, maybe just listening to it will work. But if that's not working for you, find the music that gives you the goosebumps, gives you the sense of awe and wonder. Go out into nature with the most beautiful, highest vibration music. And I'm not talking about like audible frequencies here. I'm talking about like this music is just soaring. It's like, angels made this music. And use that music to conjure that experience, that awe experience, and you will have goosebumps, frisson. Your body will tingle. You will feel more alive. You will feel more connected. When you're experiencing that, that's all you need. And sometimes it's good to have your eyes open and look at the tops of the trees waving off in the distance. And sometimes it's good to close your eyes and look for a column of light to descend upon you and fill you up with God's love and grace. And if you don't believe in God, think of it as just like you're looking for that column of light that represents the column of truth, beauty and truth. And that is, that's our prescription. You do that on the regular, and you will find your life is dramatically transformed, and you will be an agent of change in the world because you will be so full of love and the light of wisdom that it will just come out of you spontaneously in your interactions with others, and you will be a of service even without trying. It'll just come naturally because you'll be so full.
I love it. Bring it, Garrett. I actually have to get going here, so I feel like I'm killing our vibes.
Well, all right. So I didn't realize we'd gone so long. So so one thing I'd like you all to do is we are starting this thing, Connection Challenge. And the idea behind Connection Challenge is that we cultivate these experiences of connection, activities that lead to greater connection. So first is, okay, we talked about the awe-inspiring activities and stuff today, but what we want to do is like, okay, once you're full of that, what can you do to break the ice with a stranger, especially someone who might be very lonely? So like if you go to high school, like, or college, and there's that loner kid, like we want to find ways for you to reach out to those loner kids and connect with them in a way that's authentic to you. So it's not like you're not patronizing them. It's not charity. You're enjoying it just as much as they are, and you are affirming, and you and them and both of you are being reaffirmed by it, and you're growing connections in places where connections have been disrupted. And it might not be the loner kid. It could be someone who is quietly fucking depressed and about to commit suicide. Sometimes they never tell anyone because they're so disconnected, they're so alone, and they just don't feel like they can. And just by you having that presence and giving your attention to them and sharing that moment of attention and connection and genuineness, you might make them feel less alone, and they might be able to open up a little, or you might have just lifted their day enough that they don't crash all the way down to that point where they are suicidal, or where they actually are, commit suicide. So it's like there are so many chances for us to do these things, but the thing is, it's awkward a lot of the time, and sometimes it doesn't make sense. And what we want to do is create viral ways, little activities that everyone can start doing, and you can see on Instagram, and we can infect social media with the antidote to social media, which is true and genuine connections, expressions of true and genuine connections that someone sees and go, oh wow, I want to do that too. So like free hugs is a silly little example of something that kind of worked for a while. Like one dude did it, they did this free hugs thing, other people saw it, other people did it, it created connection, it was beautiful. Are there things that are less dorky that we could do that are like that? That's what we want to develop. There's a link to a Reddit that we've created. In the coming days and weeks, we're going to be rolling out this thing called Connection Challenge. And the Connection Challenge is basically, can we come up with great ways of connecting? And then can we make those ways viral, where we're challenging each other throughout the internet to go try this, because it really worked and it really bred this beautiful, wonderful connection between everyone, or between me and someone, and it saved this person or helped that person. And we don't need to make this like, okay, charity, we're saving one person or another, but we do have to know that we're all connected. And sometimes when someone goes off the deep end because they feel really alienated and disconnected, it not only can be devastating to them and those who love them, but also can be devastating to their entire school community or church community or what have you. So we are in this together, and we need to find ways to cultivate these great levels of connection. And with that, I'm going to say, Shireen, it was great having you. You can just like check on out. I'm going to sit and just like read the last few comments, and then I'm going to check out too, and we'll be back with you in a week or two.
Bye, friends.
Bye. All right. Last thing, you can light a candle and hide it under the bushel. Okay. I'm probably not going to be able to catch up with all of these comments because they're everywhere, and I actually don't have the Facebook but hello, Francesco. You can choose to feel how you want to feel. It's not easy if you're depressed, but it's possible. I'm doing it myself. Okay. Yeah. So like, just to speak to that comment, which is the only comment that I'm able to fully read on the video here. Yes, you can choose how you want to feel, but when you feel depressed, you don't, even though you might want to feel happy, it's just like, it just feels like forced to try to feel happy. And when you force yourself to feel happy, now you're feeling put upon, which might sort of have this negative spiral, right? So I'm going to just try to read this other thing before it disappears. Underlying factor that drive nervous system deficits that lead individuals to compensate with artificial stimulation from the environment, which fuels addiction epidemics. Also emotional and spiritual deficits that affect your biology and drive. The same deficits, again, fueling addiction. These lines happen to know. Do you know we can create energy with our hands? Do you feel the energy in this place? I like your energy. Oh, okay. Yeah. So sort of mentioning the energy, which is like mentioning the life source as a force or source. It's like calling it. That's a cool idea. It's like, I really like your vibe. I really like your energy. That's a cool way of sort of expressing that we are these conscious beings that have like this conscious energy that is ineffable, but at the same time, it's real and it's palpable. And by maybe putting our focus on that a little bit, that could really help. One of the things I've found recently is this game HQ, and you know, people can all like gather around on like 3 p.m., 9 p.m., whatever. It's like one person's playing it, like especially if you've got that you know, that loner kid who doesn't really hang out with you much, and you're in the cafeteria. I mean, 3 o'clock's probably not a good time for it, but you know, maybe it is a good time in California, right? And you whip out the HQ and you say, hey, everybody, like, let's all play HQ, get it on your phone, everyone do it. That kid who's the loner kid, who might be contemplating shooting up the school because they feel so alienated, it's like you could include them in that game, and they might actually be the best trivia answerer in the whole group. So they could be the hero of that game, which they never get to be because, you know, on the sports field, they were the reject. They were the last one to get picked, and that's why they're kind of a loner right now, right? So they can be the hero of the trivia game because they spent all their time on the internet or alone and reading stuff and, you know, filling their minds with trivia. So it's like, this is a great way to include them. And now they feel connection with you as a tribe, and they've helped you go further in HQ, and maybe you guys could win 300 grand doing it. So it's like, these are all some, you know, ideas. These are things that we're going to work on. And you know, in terms of these comments, I'm going to just try to read a couple more, but then I gotta bounce. So not knowing yourself, external disposition will come into conflict with the natural order of the universe and suffer accordingly. If we ask for light, we will be shown the way. I also have to ask myself to stop resisting what I don't know yet because I'm stubborn. Not stubborn, equipped with the appropriate strength of will to get through the separation of the earth. Okay, yeah, so it's like stubbornness, I think, is what the key there. It's like, if you're feeling really down, depressed, upset, disconnected, you can't force yourself to feel happy because, you know, people, especially wayseers, like, we tend to be very stubborn. And so like that stubbornness runs deep. It runs deeper than your intellect and your like idea that, yes, it would be smarter for me to be happy right now. Duh. But it's like, That's not what the inner me is feeling right now. My inner me is feeling depressed and disconnected and discouraged. So what can you do about that? And really what you can do about that is to connect to that awe experience, that higher state of grace, that ring of truth, that higher power. And I think that's why some, the 12-step program like starts off with like acknowledging first that you got a problem, but then like that there's a higher power that can help you. Well, like that's what we need, is to connect with that higher power. And whether that higher power is, if you're, staunchly atheistic, that higher power is simply the truth of the universe and the essence of life. Okay. And if you're a little bit more spiritual, that higher power is like God, angels, I would say, let's just go for God. I mean, it's simple enough. Or, universal intelligence, or whatever's outside the simulation. I mean, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter what you call it, but it does matter that you call it and that you connect with it. And when you connect with it, now it fills you up, and it doesn't force you to feel happy. It fills you with love, and you just feel happier. So it's like, there's the key, is like, connect with that higher power, connect with that greater truth. And when you're doing it right, you'll feel the goosebumps. You'll feel your hair stand on end. You'll feel electric. And that is your key. That is your lifeline. And that lifeline will give you all the love and intelligence you need to make it through the day. And not only that, but it will fill you with a kind of grace and love and enthusiasm and spirit that we ordinarily don't have when we're trying to get our attention from social media. It's like this higher state of grace, this higher power, whatever this thing is that we can connect to, fills you with attention. It gives you attention. It fills that need in you for attention. So you no longer have the societal attention deficit disorder. You are filled with attention. And when you are filled with that attention and love from this higher power, from this higher intelligence, from life force, from the ring of truth, from the truth, the very essence and truth of the universe, wherever it's coming from, we don't need to put a name on it, but that state of grace that it gives you, that love and attention that it fills you with, then serves as your the juice, the fuel that fuels the rest of your day, and it fuels your intelligence and gives you genius, and it gives you graceful encounters, and it gives you deep, heartfelt connections with others you wouldn't normally expect, and it gives you the strength and the power to really be of service to others. And it is really, this is the cure to society's ills, is connecting with that instead of society's dictates and society's ideas of what will make you rich and famous and powerful and give you the crown jewels. Fuck that. Go for that transcendent experience, that transcendent love, that transcendent experience will give you everything that society can't give you, including the cure to society's ills. And with that, I'm going to check out. God bless you all. Have a great week, and we're gonna be launching this connection challenge in the coming days, weeks, probably in a week or two. It'll be in more full force. If you want to participate, join me. You can send an email to garrett@wayseers.com. I'm sure you've received an email from me before. It might be garrett@upriser.com, depending on what list you've subscribed to, or you can post here in the comments. I'm going to try to read all these comments. There's been a lot of great comments today that I just haven't had the chance to read. So I'll read through those and try to respond to those in the coming days. But if you want to connect, or just send me a message right through Facebook, find Garrett John Laporto on Facebook and just send me a message. So any of those, and it's 2 R's, 1 T, GARRET. If you want to participate in this connection challenge and you have ideas, we've created a subreddit called r/connection challenge. And I think that's a great way to participate. We've also created a Facebook group. I have no idea where it is, but I'll try to post a link to it in the comments later on. We need your connection. We need your wisdom and intelligence and creativity. What can we figure out? What can we do that is our viral expressions of connection, viral actions that create more connection in people's lives and their hearts and their minds, to eradicate these, I feel like there's these dark places without connection. It's like when you look at satellite photos of the Earth and you see these clumps of light where everyone's connected, right? The cities where everyone's connected. And there's these clumps of light, but then there's these dark places where there aren't many people and there's not much connection. The trouble is that there are too many souls living in those sort of spiritually dark places where they're not feeling connected. And what we want to do is create viral actions that are become socially, not only socially acceptable, but like socially encouraged by sort of the viral mimetic culture out there. It's like we want to create things that that get people engaged and connected with one another. So it's like, not only are you able to connect with more people because of the things that we're co-creating here, but that people, through seeing what you've done and what you created, they can mimic you, do it too, and have wonderful, heartfelt connections in their own communities. And through this connection challenge, we hope to eradicate the dark forces of disconnection in our world, which include everything from school shootings to suicides to human exploitation and human trafficking. All these things stem out of our horrible disconnection within our societies. Like, how could any of these, how could human exploitation and human trafficking be allowed if we were deeply connected with those who are being exploited and trafficked? They couldn't. So it's like we want to create these deeper connections so that we are not only solving the immediate crisis of school shootings and suicides, but also sort of this greater dark shadow off in the distance of human exploitation. So anyway, God bless you all. Go connect, find a video that works for you. If mine worked for you, great, hallelujah. If there's music that works for you, go do that. Do it multiple times a day, but at least once a day, and really feel that frisson, feel that awe, accept that transcendent love and attention into your mind and into your heart, and then share it with others, and then share with us any wonderful creative ideas that inspiration has caused you to create, and then we'll work together to build out this connection challenge. And if you do anything that's really fantastic and you have the ability to go to the dark side, I guess, a little bit, and Instagram it, or, you know, take a video of it or whatever, share that with us, because that's what we kind of have to fight fire with fire. And right now, everyone's attention is hooked on Instagram and hooked on YouTube and hooked on these sort of videos, these viral videos. And I'd rather us create wonderful, awe-inspiring or love-inspiring viral videos than the schlock that's out there right now of people smashing beer cans on their heads. We can do better. So let's start creating those. And if you create something great, or even if you create something that's like, here, this could be great if we get it right next time, share it with us and we'll try to start including it in our work. And if you have a really great video, or even if you find some video of some other expression of connection, like free hugs or whatever, or some love mob or some cash mob or whatever, like, share it with us. Maybe we'll include it in this next viral video that we're working on, which is all on this subject matter. So yeah, so that's it. All right. I think we're done. God bless you. Bye-bye. Have an awesome